Mỹ thử tên lửa ngày tận thế Minuterman Iii giữa lúc chiến tranh Iran, bài phỏng vấn độc quyền của Tổng thống Phần Lan và nhiều thông tin khác.
The Iranian warship, the frigate Iris Dana, off the coast of Sri Lanka. The Indian Navy's first reaction is now in, and I want to quote, the Indian Navy in a statement says a distress call was received from Iris Dana, and this was received at the MRCC in Colombo in the early hours of the 4th of March 2026. As already reported by the Sri Lankan Navy, the ship was operating 20 nautical miles west of Galle in the Sri Lankan area, in the area of Sri Lanka's responsibility. On receipt of this information, the Indian Navy promptly launched its SAR, or search and rescue efforts. It commenced with a long-range maritime patrol aircraft being launched at 10:00 hours on the 4th of March 2026 to augment the search and rescue efforts being undertaken by the Sri Lankan Navy. Another aircraft with air-droppable rafts was kept on standby for immediate deployment. INS Tarangini, which was operating in the vicinity, was deployed for aiding the relief and rescue operations and arrived in the general area, the search area, by 1600 hours on 4th of March 2026. And by this time, SAR, or search and rescue operations, had been undertaken by the Sri Lankan Navy and other agencies. INS Ikshak. Now, INS Ikshak has also sailed from Kochi to augment the search efforts and continues to remain in the area to search for missing personnel as a humanitarian measure for the shipwrecked personnel. Coordination with Sri Lankan side on search and rescue operations is ongoing even now. At sea, there is a massive escalation. So far I've got you the statement of the Indian Navy, and right now the other big story is this massive escalations that's taking place in the war between Iran and Israel and the United States on the other side. An Iranian remote-controlled explosive boat. So this is virtually like a UAV of the seas, if I may. A remote-controlled explosive boat targeted a crude oil tanker in Iraqi waters, marking the first such attack on a vessel in Iraq's exclusive economic zone since the beginning of these operations 6 days ago. There's a massive spike in tensions. The Israeli army says it's completed the 12th wave. The Israeli armed forces, the Israeli Air Force, the army, they've completed the 12th wave of their strikes on Tehran, targeting the headquarters of Iran's Special Internal Security Units. This is in the Alborz province, along with targeting the Basij militia, the bases of Basij and internal security units of Iran. Iran has said in the past 6 days they've lost 1,200 people, including 175 young school-going girls and their teachers, killed in a massive strike, a missile strike that hit a school in Minab. In Israel, at least 11 people have been killed in Iranian missile attacks, and the United States has confirmed so far 6 American personnel are dead in the fighting that started 6 days ago. The war is also now spilling across the region. Lebanon has reported 77 lives lost in Israeli strikes, and these are missile strikes and air strikes. Casualties have also been reported now in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Oman, and in the United Arab Emirates following drone strikes, missile strikes. They've been intercepted, but debris falling has claimed some lives. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps claims, and this is a big claim that's been made by Iran, word just coming in, Iran claims it has shot down a US Air Force F-16E Striking Eagles fighter jet, a claim that the United States has flatly denied, calling it Iran's propaganda. The conflict is now threatening to widen further. Azerbaijan has accused Iran of a drone strike in which civilians have been injured, and this is a drone strike in an autonomous region of Azerbaijan at an airport. So this just shows the wide arc of this battle, and I quickly want to bring in my colleague Sandeep Unnithan for more on the story. Sandeep, the first reaction that comes in from the Indian Navy on the sinking of the Iranian frigate Iris Dana that was returning after that Milan exercise. Indian Navy's joined the rescue operations, but finding anyone alive now is virtually perhaps next to impossible.
Yes, Gaurav, and you know, that's the nature of submarine warfare. The fact that the ship was torpedoed late at night, early in the morning, actually at 5 a.m. On the yesterday. And the Sri Lankan Navy was the closest to the scene, and they rushed to the rescue, and they've rescued the 30-odd crew of the Iris Dana. And now it is the Indian Navy that was a little distance away. The Indian coastline is about 300 kilometers away from this region, from Gaul. So it's clearly the Indian Navy was on standby, because that SOS, that distress signal of the IRIS Dana would have been picked up by several navies in the region, and the navy that was closest would have responded, which was the Sri Lankan Navy, Gaurav.
Indeed. Was there anything else that India could have done? Because there are many questions that are now being raised. The Iranian ship had come for the International Fleet Review in India. It then stayed back for an exercise, Milan, and then was on its way back. The ship was on her way back. It was in international waters off the coast of Sri Lanka. Is there anything that India could have done differently?
Not really, Gaurav. I mean, this is a full-scale war between Iran and the United States, and India is there. It's a neighbor in the vicinity, and you know, if there was, God forbid, another ship to go down, or a United States vessel was targeted by the Iranians, if you look at it the other way around, then India would do exactly the same. It would extend a search and rescue mission to go and locate those things, as we've done in the past. Now, this vessel was in international waters. It was far away from Indian territorial waters. It was in the jurisdiction of the Sri Lankan waters. EEZ, near the Sri Lankan EEZ, when it was targeted. There's very little that India could have done. Yes, we are the largest navy in the region, and but that does not mean that other navies will take our permission before launching military operations, which they deem in their national interest. In the case of the United States, which is waging a full-on war with Iran, and they've targeted several such warships across the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea, Gaurav. I mean, there's something like 20 vessels that have been down in very similar circumstances. There have been the Soleimani catamaran that was knocked out. All of these had crew on board, and in the vicinity of several other nations. And yes, the point does remain that India is the main naval force in the region. It's the largest navy in the region. But when two countries have decided to shoot at each other, there's a full-scale war going on, there's very little that the Indian Navy could do except render assistance to the sides.
Big story coming in, and Sandeep, I want you to stay in with me on this big message that the United States of America is sending out. The United States has test-fired an unarmed Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile dubbed the Doomsday Missile, and this amidst the escalating tensions in West Asia. So USA and Israel on one side, Iran on the other. Why should the United States suddenly be testing an intercontinental ballistic missile? And this is a nuclear-capable missile that was launched from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The test designated to validate many aspects. So it was designed to validate, for example, reliability, accuracy, and readiness of America's land-based forces and land-based nuclear deterrent. Even though the missile carried no warhead, the Minuteman III is capable of delivering nuclear payloads across continents. It has a gigantic range of over 13,000 kilometers. So what's America's Doomsday Missile all about? Let me now decode and break this down for you. So the Doomsday III, or Minuteman III, is an intercontinental ballistic missile. It has a range of over 13,000 kilometers. It can travel at the speeds of nearly 24,000 kilometers per hour. It's huge, this speed, and nothing can counter a missile at this speed. It weighs around 26 tons. The missile can carry multiple payloads. The current test was 2 payloads that with pinpoint accuracy on the Marshall Islands. It was tracked, it delivered the payload. 2. It's powered by 3 solid propellant rocket motors equipped with an advanced inertial navigation system designed for precision targeting even in very difficult conditions. And crucially, the missile is actually built to survive. It's built for survivability. It's capable of withstanding even nearby nuclear detonations. So this is like a huge second strike capability, or the system actually remains on a 24/7 operational readiness, performing a very critical pillar of United States nuclear deterrence. The question is, why would they test this missile and why now? Though officially there are reports that seem to say this test was planned a long time ago, long before the war that started 6 days ago actually started. Let's now take a look at some of the key details of the Doomsday missile test. The Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile was launched on the 3rd of March at 11:01 Pacific time, 11 in the night Pacific time. The test took place from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The launch, designated GT-255, involved an unarmed Minuteman III missile. During the test, the missile carried 2 test re-entry vehicles designed to assess the performance of the system. The missile then traveled about 13,000 odd kilometers across the Pacific Ocean before reaching the target zone at an atoll in the Marshall Islands. And according to the US Air Force Global Strike Command, the launch had been scheduled a long time in advance. Years in advance, it was planned that this would be the designated test. According to the United States, it's not linked to any current global tension. The objective clearly is to test and verify the missile's accuracy and test the reliability of systems on board and systems on ground. This is one way to ensure readiness of America's nuclear deterrence. We get you more in this report.
Item 131, missile suspension released. Item 133, first stage ignition to missile.
Washington's Doomsday missile roared into the sky from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Washington test-fired an unarmed LGM-30G Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile. A powerful demonstration of America's long-range nuclear capability, the Minuteman III is one of the most critical pillars of the United States nuclear deterrence. Even when unarmed, its capabilities remain staggering. The missile can strike targets over 13,000 kilometers away, traveling at speeds close to 24,000 kilometers per hour. It weighs around 26 tons and can carry multiple nuclear payloads. Powered by 3 solid propellant rocket motors, it is designed for rapid launch and extreme range. The missile remains on 24-hour launch readiness, forming the land-based leg of America's nuclear triad. Officials say the latest launch was meant to validate reliability and accuracy. The destructive potential of this missile is staggering. Modern warheads carried by the Minuteman III can be up to 20 times more powerful than the atomic bomb that destroyed Hiroshima in 1945. With the conflict involving Iran intensifying, the timing of the test is being watched closely across the world. Bureau Report, India Today.
Who can forget the devastating bomb attack, the nuclear bomb attack that took place, atom bomb attack in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945? Let's compare the US Doomsday missile with the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima in 1945. First, the weapon type, of course, is different. The Minuteman III is an intercontinental ballistic missile. The Hiroshima bomb was a uranium bomb, an atomic bomb. America's modern missile is the LGM-30G Minuteman III. The Hiroshima bomb was called the Little Boy and was dropped from an aircraft. The Minuteman III has been in service since the 1970s. The Hiroshima bomb was actually used on the 6th of August 1945. The Minuteman III was launched from an underground missile silo. The Hiroshima bomb was dropped from a B-29 bomber aircraft during the Second World War. The Minuteman III can travel over 6,000 miles. It's traveled over 9,600 kilometers at speeds close to Mach 23. The Hiroshima bomb was simply a gravity bomb released from the aircraft. The weight of the missile is about 36,000 kilograms. The Hiroshima bomb weighed around 4,400 kilograms. Modern warhead carried by the Minuteman III is about 350 kilotons, which is perhaps 18 to 20 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb, which had a yield of about 15 kilotons. The US currently maintains around 400 Minuteman III missiles in its arsenal, while the Hiroshima bomb destroyed an entire city. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the little boy bombs, were the first nuclear weapons ever used in war. Today, the Minuteman III remains a key pillar of America's nuclear triad. So let's try and make sense of this development and the timing of this. Sudhir Kumar is former Director General of the Defense Research and Development Organization and former MD of BrahMos Aerospace. Sir, welcome. Sandeep Puneethan, my colleague, stays with me. Mr. Sudhir Kumar, your reading of America testing the Minuteman III in the middle of a war with Iran, would you see this as a routine test or would you see this as a major signal?
Good evening, Gaurav and Sandeep. Actually, there are a few more reasons to it. On the face of it, let us accept that the missile has become more than 56-year-old. So certainly it needs to be tested for repeatability and accuracy. And if we see the schedule, last year, United States Air Force Strike Command, they have conducted 2 tests. The first was in May, the second was in November. So now, if we see the schedule, it's almost every 6 months they have been testing it. So 6 months are over in March. So they have conducted test in March. It looks it is as per their schedule. But if we look deeply and look in a warped manner, then I will think that it's a message to North Korea and China both. China to not do any adventure in Taiwan, and to North Korea, again the same message. And
that's a very significant point you make, sir. And let me quickly bring in Sandeep Puneethan to elaborate on this. Sandeep, would you look at this test as routine, something that was decided earlier, or the timing? War with Iran, some statements coming from China. Is there a very clear message to China? Don't even think of getting involved here?
Well, Gaurav, I tend to go with what Dr. Mishra mentioned, the fact that it was a routine test. But then you have to look at the backdrop of, where this routine test comes in. Just a few days back, on the 5th of February, 2026, the New START treaty limit ended, right? Which means that for the first time since the 1970s, there is no limit on the United States and Russia to curtail their nuclear weapons. This is something that they've been doing from the 1970s, the USSR first and then Russia, that they would maintain a stockpile limit, about 1,500, 1,600 nuclear warheads, and both would verify each other's stockpiles. Now, Russia pulled out of that a few years back, but the US refused to ratify it in February when that expired. Now, the UN Secretary General has also said this is a very dangerous time that we are entering, that the 2 biggest nuclear powers do not have any mechanism of ratifying each other's stockpiles, and that there is no limits now on the kind of weapons that they can, stockpile. Now, the other thing is that, as you mentioned, Gaurav, this is the first time in history that the United States is being targeted by 3 nuclear-armed countries: Russia, China, and North Korea. So this is the first time, and there is a lot of consternation in the US strategic community as well about this development, that how this was allowed to happen. And the fact is that the US replacement for the Minuteman III, now the Minuteman is a missile system that's been around for ages, almost half a century. It was introduced in the early 70s.
Yes.
The replacement for the Minuteman III, which is the Sentinel, is yet to come. So they've had to extend the life of these missiles. They've had to extend the life of the warheads. Like many other items in the US arsenal, you never thought that you would need them now. And the world is talking increasingly about nuclear weapons.
And this
especially
is
in the
such
last
an
couple of
uncertain
months.
time.
Yes, yes.
You know, Dr. Sudhir Kumar, the uncertain times that we live in, the aggression that we see from the United States, and the word of caution that comes from China. China and Iran are considered very close strategic partners. The amount of whether it's Chinese weapons that are provided to Iran or the Iranian oil that's given on discount to China and more, you know, China looks at Iran and areas around as a strategic foothold. Is the United States sending a message to North Korea and China and perhaps obliquely even Russia that do not try to interfere in Israel and America targeting Iran right now?
You see, if you see the development in the last 2-3 weeks, then there were many, you know, the big aircrafts landed from China and Russia, both to Tehran. But I will not say it's a nuclear posturing. I would like to say that it's a routine test of the US Strike Global Command. You see, they have to finish off their inventory also. They have more than 400 missiles. And this is the only missile which they can launch from the land to land. So, of course, it's a message, I'll say it's an indirect message to China and North Korea to not intervene in the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
Dr. Sudhir Kumar, before we let you go, what is it that we have? I mean, you know, you've looked at the BrahMos, you've guided the BrahMos project and led it so effectively. But when we go from a supersonic cruise missile and from intermediate range ballistic missiles to intercontinental missiles, where are we there, sir?
No, you see, every country, they develop the weapons based on the threat perception. And what is our threat perception is within 6,000 kilometers. So we don't need to develop, as of now, an intercontinental ballistic missile. But at the same time, I would like to say that if we can develop for 6,000, we can certainly develop for 8,000, we can certainly develop for 10,000. The technology is available, but we really don't need 10,000 kilometer ICBM. We are a middle power, and our strategic requirements are fulfilled by the present arsenal of intercontinental, I will not say intercontinental, but the ballistic missiles.
The intermediate range ballistic missiles. For joining me here on this India Today special broadcast in this part, Dr. Sudhir Kumar Mishra, many thanks. News just coming in. You saw images of India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri at the Iranian embassy signing the condolence book. India Today now gets you details of what the Foreign Secretary wrote in the condolence book. He wrote, and I quote, "Sincerest condolences on behalf of the government and the people of India. We pray for peace for the departed soul." Unquote. That's the message that we've been able to get India, of course, always in favor of dialogue and diplomacy to address any issue. And the Prime Minister has said so in the past, whether it's the Russia-Ukraine conflict or Israel and Iran or Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah, it's through dialogue and diplomacy that a solution needs to be found. I quickly now want to cut across and bring into this conversation Amichai Chikli, Israel's Minister for Diaspora, who joins me on India Today from Jerusalem. Minister, welcome. When we look at the tensions that continue to rise in the region, Israel and the United States, they've carried out yet another wave of carpet bombing of Tehran, of Qum, of Isfahan, of Natanz and several other parts of Iran. And Iran says 175 children and teachers killed. An Iranian ship was sunk by the United States in the Indian Ocean region. 20 ships have been sunk so far in this battle. How long will the bombing continue, sir? When will things settle down? When will the US and Israel stop?
So first, I think we need to remember that what we're seeing now in Iran, this offensive led by Israel and the US, is part of a wider picture. It is part of a war that started and initiated by Iran and its proxies on October 7, with the killing, murdering, raping, and kidnapping of Israeli civilians. We're speaking about 1,200 casualties on October 7th. The day after October 7th, Hezbollah joined the war with no aggression from Israel, started to fire missiles. Hezbollah was created by the Revolutionary Guards of Iran. Okay, it's an Iranian proxy.
Okay.
60,000 people were needed to evacuate their homes. We have fought for 2 years and still continuing to fight against Hezbollah. Then you have the Houthis from Yemen. We had no conflict with Yemen. We never had a war with Yemen. And they started to shoot endless missiles, drones to the heart of our cities. So what's happening now in Iran is a continuation of this war. And
Okay,
let's
so
not
you
forget,
say, sir, it's a continuation of this war, but what are conditions of an off-ramp in your view? What conditions must be fulfilled for Israel and the US to stop bombing Iran? An off-ramp, what would be an off-ramp scenario in that the Israeli cabinet may have discussed?
So first, as I said before, we need to look at the bigger picture. We are now removing existential threats. We are seeing the aggression of Iran, not just against the state of Israel, but also against the UAE, against Kuwait, against Bahrain, against Qatar, against Saudi Arabia. So what we're doing now is to remove the threat that is coming from the ballistic missiles, remove everything that is regarding the nuclear plan of Iran. It might take several weeks. It might take more. I hope it will take less. But this is the main goal of this mission. And second, yes, I think it's the best also for India's interest to have a different regime in Iran, a democracy that will represent the people of Iran and will be aligned with the values that we share. We had Modi coming to Israel just a week ago.
Yes.
It was a super strategic and important visit with one of our strongest ally. India is one of the strongest and closest ally of Israel. We share intelligence. We share a lot of military technology. We know you're facing a very serious threat from the radical terror regime in Pakistan who's threatening India. And we are working together. And take a look, you have Pakistan, you have Afghanistan, and then you have Iran. We don't want this entire region to be governed by fanatic, lunatic Islamists. We need a different government in Iran. And I think it's in the interest of both Israel and India.
So when you speak of Iran and you speak of Pakistan, what are you implying, sir? Because Pakistan is a country where a radical Islamist terror state already has a nuclear weapon.
I'm saying that we are well aware of the situation in the region. We are well aware about the fact that after the withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan, Afghanistan is now led by Al-Qaeda. Pakistan is very hostile to India and also governed by Islamists who also hosted and give a safe place for Osama bin Laden. We don't forget that, and we don't forget the attacks on Indian people. On Indian people recently, we saw the attacks coming from Pakistan, and we stand firm with India. So therefore, I'm saying that if you have Pakistan and Afghanistan, and then you have this Islamist terror regime in Iran, that's not a good reality. So we don't have any intention now to go on the offense on Pakistan, but I'm saying that a different regime in Iran will serve the interest of India itself.
Amichai Chikli for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks, Minister for Diaspora Affairs in the government of Israel. But as tensions spike, this war isn't just restricted now to West Asia. An Iranian warship was sunk in the Indian Ocean region by a nuclear-powered American attack submarine, and that's seen as a major escalation. A US submarine torpedoed and sunk an Iranian frigate, Iris Dana, off the coast of Sri Lanka. Pentagon actually released images showing the warship in international waters, and Pete Hegseth, US Secretary of War, mentioned the Iranian warship was in international waters. It was being chased by or tracked by a US nuclear submarine, and suddenly there was a torpedo strike, and it just sent a lot of water and debris into the sky. 180 sailors were on board. Sadly, 80 are feared dead. Sri Lankan teams rescued some of the survivors. Iran condemned the attack as an atrocity at sea. The US says its naval campaign has already destroyed more than 20 Iranian vessels, signaling a sharp escalation in this widening conflict. US, of course, claims Iran no longer has a navy to speak of. Commodore Praveen Rajpal is a very well-respected former submariner joining us on this special broadcast. Commodore Rajpal, welcome. Sir, your reading of the US strike on an Iranian frigate in international waters, thousands of ships, I think 2,000 ships were sunk in the Second World War between 1939 and 45, but only this is the fourth in the last 80 years. Your reading of the strike, sir?
Good evening, Gaurav. Great to be on your show. Well, from the submarine point of view, it's a perfect hit. The crew would be very happy. They have managed to sink a ship, supposedly in a war. But was it correct legally? Well, there can be different opinions on that. The ship was in outside the territorial waters of Sri Lanka, about 40 nautical miles. So Sri Lanka had nothing to do with it. The main thing to be considered here is US had backed out of the Milan 26 a few days before actually giving their assent to it. They were probably tracking the ship. The ship, as per the open sources, had a crew of about 180, while actually it should take about 150. So 30-odd sailors were extra, probably taking part in the Milan and going back without any weapons. They probably could never have tracked the submarine. They could never listen to there was a submarine down below, and for the submarine to attack without any reasons, it remains to be, probably whenever there's a judgment on this, it'll come out that did they break the Charter 51 of the United Nations, or was it in any self-defense? The Charter 51 is very clear on this. First of all, there is no war declared by US on this.
Yes.
On Iran, they have just called it epic fury. It's a conflict. So it's not a war. Neither has Iran declared a war. So in such a scenario, was it correct on part of the submarine to do this? Again,
would you see this as a major escalation, and that too not in those territorial waters, but in the Indian Ocean region?
Absolutely correct, because, sinking an Iranian ship 2,000 nautical miles, 2,000 miles away from Iran is an escalation. And there is no doubt in that. But was it correct on their part? As I say, it remains to be judged by the historians whenever the question comes up few years, decade later. Was it a correct action on the part of the US submarine to do this or no? Why I say this again
how difficult is it to be in a nuclear-powered submarine compared to a diesel-electric submarine? One, for the benefit of our viewers, very quickly, the difference between the two on technicalities, the silence, the speed, the stealth, and life on board a submarine. How long would the submarine have stayed underwater for a mission like this?
Oh, so you're asking me difference between the two submarines, the conventional submarine and nuclear submarines? There's a huge difference. The conventional submarine runs on diesel engines. It needs to charge its batteries every 12 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours, for which it has to come up to snort, take in the air, run the diesel engines, charge the batteries, and go down again. The depends on how far it can go away from the coast, because the maximum endurance would be limited to about, say, 40-45 days. But for a nuclear submarine, the endurance is only a human being and the stores that it carries. So as I presume, a submarine here in Indian Ocean, a US submarine would have been away from the base port for more than 3 to 4 months. That's how a nuclear submarine operates. It was probably an SSN, a fast-moving submarine with torpedoes, and it did its job. As I said, the crew would be very proud of having hit a ship, but was it correct or no? I leave that question to the historians.
Commodore Rajpal, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. Now, moving on, you have Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, who's offered to help countries in the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, counter the threats that come from the Shahid drones of Iran. But remember, Ukraine is already in the line of Russian fire. Now, in an exclusive conversation with India Today, Finland's President, Dr. Alexander Stubb, he outlined what could well be the end game in the Russia-Ukraine war, and that's a big, big story that my colleague Geeta Mohan and I get you on this broadcast. Finland's President, Dr. Alexander Stubb, in an exclusive conversation with India Today, with Geeta Mohan and I, he said Ukraine has lost about 20% of its territory since Russia first set foot or seized Crimea in 2014 and then expanded in the war in 2022. But he insisted that any peace deal would not legally recognize this Russian annexation, but there could well be some kind of peace on the borders. Russia could perhaps retain de facto control of parts of territory under its control, roughly about 20%, but will not get international recognition for it. In return, Ukraine could receive European Union's membership, strong security guarantees from the United States and from Europe, and perhaps the largest post-war reconstruction package in modern history. So is that the outline for a peace proposal that's currently being considered? Finland's president said Russia is unlikely to win this war, pointing to massive battlefield losses. His assessment is 90,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in recent times, in the past couple of months. In a key remark, he said Ukraine may actually be more willing to consider a peace settlement compared to Russia, even as negotiations continue on what could well be the final framework. Let's listen in to Dr. Alexander Stubb, because he's very closely involved in ensuring peace prevails in the region. Do you think the Russia-Ukraine war, the focus on Russia won't be as much because resources that could have gone to Ukraine or should have been used in that conflict will now be diverted to West Asia?
Well, I think two of the things that Ukraine has needed from the beginning and continues to need. One is air defense, and of course we're seeing a lot of the air defense now in this part of the world. And the second one is missiles, both of which are needed. But we have to understand that Ukraine is in a much better position than they were a year ago. On the battlefield, I hate to use these numbers, but over 90,000 Russian soldiers dead in 3 months. They're not able to recruit as many as they lose on the battlefield. Last month, Ukraine gained more territory back than Russia gained. I was in Kyiv on the anniversary of the war on the 24th of February, showing my strong support for President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. They are in a much better place. And you have to understand that, I come from a country which understands what's going on because the Soviets attacked us in the Winter War and the War of Continuation. So there's a strong affinity. And I'll be very frank with you, Finland would have never joined NATO had Russia not attacked Ukraine. So these are big things in our region. And the important thing is that we understand each other and what's going on.
But you did join the NATO.
Yes, definitely.
And now we see a very fragmented, disrupted, almost broken NATO in such...
I disagree fundamentally, but go ahead.
Is NATO really not facing an existential crisis
No,
here?
not at all. We're seeing the birth of NATO 3.0.
Sans America. Sans America, without America.
No, I don't think so. I think the United States is now shifting the burden when it comes to conventional warfare. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're increasing our defense expenditure to 5%. That's why Finland joined. That's why Sweden joined. So you had one of the most substantive armies in Europe. We have 1 million men and women that have done military service. We have 280,000 that we can mobilize at wartime. We have over 60 F-18s. We just bought 64 F-35s. So And the list goes on. We have the biggest artillery in Europe together with Poland. And as I always say, we don't have them because we're worried about Sweden. We have them because we're worried about Russia. So what we're seeing is a rejuvenation of NATO and a burden shifting on the conventional side, but then the nuclear umbrella will still stay with the United States. So I'm not worried about the future of NATO at all. Quite the contrary. I think it was a strategic mistake by Russia to attack Ukraine because it strengthened NATO.
But then it's gained more territory. And I mean, let me just give you the other side of the story. Both Geeta and I were in Ukraine when the war started, and we covered it both 2022, 2023. They've lost about 20% of their country. They've lost a large number of people. Economy is in tailspin. In all of this, does NATO have the stomach to continue supporting Ukraine at a time when America is engaged here? And would China be the ultimate gainer in all of this? Because a lot of resources are being spent either in Ukraine or in West Asia.
Well, if we start from the territory issue, remember that the war actually began 12 years ago in 2014 when Russia, against international law, annexed the Crimean Peninsula. So within the first few days of the war with green men and women, they gained 12%. In the past 12 years, they have gained 8%. In the past 2 years, they have gained 1%. That means that they're only advancing a few meters per day at a cost of human life, which to me is mind-boggling. And in some days, actually, what is happening is that for one Ukrainian dead soldier, there are 25 dead Russian soldiers. And as far as economy is concerned, I'm not worried about Ukraine. It just got a 90 billion euro loan from Europe. NATO is not involved, but the member states of NATO, like Finland, like Norway, like Denmark, are supporting Ukraine a lot. The economic problem is actually with Russia. Zero growth, zero reserves, interest rates of 16%, inflation double digits, and on top of that, a potential bank crisis. So I think the person who is more worried right now is President Putin. And if I may be very direct, what's going to happen is that Russia is not going to win this war, but it's virtually impossible for them to forge a peace because they know that they will look bad.
The governor of West Bengal, C.V. Anand Bose, has resigned. Sources in the governor's house have confirmed his resignation. The reason for the resignation hasn't been made public yet. We were told he's left the Lok Nivas and is on his way to Delhi. Politics is already escalating over his sudden resignation, and this development, Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, she's actually crying foul. She's taken to social media platform to X to say, and I quote, "I'm shocked and deeply concerned by the sudden news of the resignation of Shri C.V. Ananda Bose, the governor of West Bengal. The reasons behind his resignation are not known to me at this moment. However, given the prevailing circumstances, I would not be surprised if the governor has been subjected to some pressure from the Union Home Minister to serve certain political interests on the eve of the forthcoming State Assembly elections." Union Home Minister just informed me that Shri R.N. Ravi is being appointed as the governor of West Bengal. He never consulted with me as per established convention in this regard, unquote. I quickly want to cut across and bring in my colleague Indrajit Kundu for more on the story from Kolkata. Indrajit, very sudden development. What brought about this and bringing in R.N. Ravi into Bengal just before elections? What's the signal?
Well, this is a huge political development as far as West Bengal is concerned. Initially, when the news emerged that C.V. Anand Bose has resigned, there was a lot of speculation as to what may have forced him to resign right now. The fact that Mamata Banerjee has now gone out proactively and to post on social media, and she's shared this, a bit of information that she has had a discussion with the Home Minister, and she's accusing the central government of taking a unilateral decision. And she has also announced that the Home Minister has already informed him that R.N. Ravi, the Tamil Nadu governor, will be taking additional charge of West Bengal. That clearly shows that this is not merely a resignation, but clearly a change of guard, that CV Anand Bose must surely have been asked to, tender his resignation, and therefore, there was a backup plan and somebody else was en route to take charge.
So tell
at
me a little about the equation between Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee and the Governor CV Anand Bose, because earlier it wasn't very good with former Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar when he was the Governor of Bengal. But how was it with Anand Bose, and how is it likely to be with RN Ravi coming in, considering the tensions we've been seeing between the Chief Minister and the Governor in Tamil Nadu?
Well, as I said, very, very crucial. The timing of it is very crucial. CV Anand Bose, he took over office in November 2022. So it's been about 3 years that he has been at Raj Bhavan. The Raj Bhavan, of course, has been at loggerheads with Mamata Banerjee. Mamata Banerjee government accusing CV Anand Bose of sexual harassment of a staff in Raj Bhavan. That case was registered. So there has been a lot of tug of war. But of late, what we've seen, that Governor Bose has given in to a lot of demands made by the government, and there has been some sort of an amicable resolution of these differences. But that has triggered the Bengal BJP. Ever since CV Anand Bose took charge as the governor here in West Bengal, the West Bengal state unit of the BJP, and specifically the leader of the opposition, Shubhendu Adhikari, has not been very happy with that appointment. Often they have been, seen where the BJP has raised certain issues, and they always accuse the governor of not being proactive enough. Not the kind of action that we have seen as far as his predecessor Jagdeep Dhankar is concerned. So right before the election, CV Anand Bose stepping down, and somebody who's coming in has an image of one who actually is always had a lot of confrontation with the Tamil Nadu government. So here, RN Ravi would play a very, very crucial role, and one would see the kind of tenure that he has had in Chennai. It does give in a template as to what is the kind of role that he might play as far as West Bengal is concerned.
And that too, just before the elections, you've been speaking to your sources in the TRINMUL Congress, Indrajit. Your sources in the TRINMUL Congress, how are they looking at RN Ravi coming in just before elections?
Well, I've been speaking to the Trinamool top brass, and in fact, the Trinamool second in command, Abhishek Banerjee, just a short while, a short few days back, in fact, he held a press conference where he had accused the BJP of trying to create a constitutional vacuum in West Bengal, trying to hit out over the SIR issue, and saying that the BJP clearly does not want elections on time, and that's why this entire delay. There are 60 lakh cases pending for further adjudication, which the Trinamool believes cannot be done over the next couple of weeks. It will take a few months. So therefore, there is a sense within the unease within the Trinamool Congress whether the elections would be announced on time, whether they will happen on time, because if it doesn't, there will be a constitutional crisis. The Trinamool is accusing the BJP that they are using a section of the judiciary to create a political vacuum, because they believe there has to be a delay, because if the BJP fights the elections now, they are sure to lose. So that's the charge that the Trinamool Congress is...
stay with me. India has posted a mammoth total of 253 for 7 against England in the semi-final at Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. So to defeat England must be confined to under 252, not let them get 254. I quickly want to cut across to my colleague Nikhil Naz, who's been tracking every ball of the Indian inning. Nikhil, Sanju Samson actually began from where he left off in the last game. Brilliant batting from him, but now it's up to the bowlers and the fielders.
Well, that's right, Gaurav. I mean, first things first, this is a record total that you've ever seen in the semi-final of a World Cup. You know, big occasion. Many were talking about the Indian batting not really firing, Indian batting not looking like the fluid self that we had seen in the bilateral series. And guess what an occasion they picked to fire on all cylinders. So 253, it's a massive, massive total. It would require nothing less than a miracle by the English team to overhaul a total like that. As I said, is the highest ever total in a knockout of a T20 World Cup. It will be the highest ever total chased by any team in a T20 World Cup encounter. These are things that don't happen. Yes, it's a good pitch to bat on. But once a team notches up the kind of total that India have, you have to say that it's almost game over for the team that will be coming out to bat. And let's not also forget the kind of crowd support that we are witnessing there in Wankhede. Not only is it a packed stadium, it's also celebrities galore, from MS Dhoni to Rohit Sharma to Bollywood stars like Ranbir Kapoor. Everyone, the who's who of the country are there to witness this particular encounter.
Can the fans now breathe easy? 253 for 7. Can we all breathe easy? Or does it promise to be a cracker of a semi-final and England has a fighting chance?
I would say you can breathe easy, Gaurav, because these kind of totals firstly are never scored. And then to chase a total down like this, I don't think you can ever see it in history happening, something like that. Yes, many will say history is there, to be broken. Records are meant to be broken, and that's something that the English team would like to hold on to. But let's not forget, a bilateral series, if it was a bilateral series with less pressure, I would have still said, okay, good batting pitch, England will give it a go. World Cup semi-finals brings with it so much more pressure, and that's why my admiration for this Indian team goes a couple of notch higher, because in big games, to be batting fearless, you can always talk about T20s, about playing fearless cricket. One thing is to say it, the other is to execute it at a stage like the World Cup semi-final. That's done. And a word for Sanju Samson. He showed us a glimpse with that knock that he played in 97 in a virtual quarter-final, taking India through to the semi-final. And once again, he steps up onto the stage. And the start that he gave the Indian team, everyone else, of course, chipped in, but that base was enough for India to notch up this record.
So now it's up to the bowlers and the fielders to ensure that we win. And of course, for the crowds to ensure the morale is kept high till we win. And then you and I come back and discuss this tomorrow. Many thanks, Nikhil, for joining me.